Imagine it's the year 1907 and you're an American citizen going about your daily life. Everything seems fine on the surface. But lurking beneath the bustling streets of New York City is a ticking time bomb. Banks are failing left and right. People are losing their entire life savings in a single day, and the stock market has ground to a screeching halt. It feels like the entire US economy is on the verge of total collapse. With each passing hour, panic spreads throughout the country like wildfire. People run to banks, demanding their money only to find their accounts have been drained overnight. Some savvy investors try to pull out their investments from the stock market before it's too late. Others frantically scramble to liquidate their assets, hoping to salvage something from the wreckage. Yet still others despair as they watch their life savings evaporate into thin air. The future looks bleak and uncertain as Americans brace for impact. You may be wondering, wait a minute, didn't the Federal Reserve bail out investors back in 2008? Well, not quite yet, because in order to tell the legendary tale of Wall Street's greatest tycoon, we have to go back even further, way back, to the year 1907, when the United States had no Federal Reserve to rely on and was on the brink of total economic disaster. So strap yourself in, because this is the unbelievable story of how one man saved America. The year is 1907 and the American economy is booming. Investors are throwing caution to the wind, pouring money into anything that promises a quick profit. But this reckless abandon won't last forever. As the year drags on, cracks begin to show in the seemingly invincible markets. People are starting to get nervous. When one bank begins to fail, panic spreads to others. Investors start pulling their money out in mass, hoping to save something from the sinking ship. But there isn't enough money to go around. As more and more banks crumble, people lose faith in the system. They start hoarding cash, afraid to invest in a market that seems so unpredictable. The economy grinds to a screeching halt. Factories shut down, workers are laid off, and the entire country teeters on the edge of chaos. There's no safety net in place, no Federal Reserve to swoop in and save the day. It's every person for themselves in a ruthless free market economy. As the situation spirals out of control, all hope seems lost. The fate of the nation hangs in the balance. Will it pull through this economic turmoil, or is it destined to descend into utter chaos? And when everyone gives up hope, one man rises to the occasion. Enter J.P. Morgan. Morgan, a titan of Wall Street, steps into the fray with a bold plan to save the economy. He gathers the most powerful bankers in the country into a locked library at his home and negotiates billion-dollar deals overnight. By leveraging his connections, influence, and personal wealth, he brokers peace between warring factions and stabilizes the markets. But saving the economy is just the beginning. He doesn't stop until he creates a system that can prevent another financial crisis. And that's when he makes a pivotal move that will change the face of American finance forever. After hours of tense negotiations, he emerges victorious, having secured a deal that will save the economy. But it's just the first step in a much bigger plan. The next morning, he calls a secret meeting with the top bankers in New York City. Together, they form a powerful alliance to stabilize the markets and prevent another collapse. Now, with the support of his fellow bankers, Morgan takes his fight to the next level. He establishes a new entity, the Federal Reserve, which will oversee the nation's banks and provide a safety net for investors. But he faces fierce opposition from politicians who fear the Fed will give unelected bankers too much power. Despite the pushback, Morgan stays committed to his vision. He fights tirelessly to win over skeptics and ultimately prevails, cementing his legacy as the father of modern banking. But let's take a closer look at who J.P. Morgan actually was and how he became the most powerful man on Wall Street. Born in 1837 in Massachusetts, Morgan grew up in a wealthy family and attended Harvard University. From an early age, he showed an interest in business and finance, and after graduating from Harvard, he joined his father's bank. However, after his father's death, Morgan took over the bank and turned it into one of the most successful financial institutions in the country. Morgan quickly made a name for himself as a skilled negotiator and dealmaker. He helped finance the construction of railroads and other major infrastructure projects and became known as the architect of modern capitalism. Morgan also played a key role in several major economic crises, including the Panic of 1893 and the Gold Crisis of 1895. He used his personal wealth and influence to stabilize the markets and prevent a total collapse. And it was these experiences that prepared him for the biggest challenge of his career, the Panic of 1907. When the stock market began to crash and banks started to fail, Morgan knew he had to act fast. He assembled a group of the nation's leading bankers and met with them in secret to come up with a plan to save the economy. Now, here's where things get interesting. Unlike today's highly regulated financial markets, the banking system in 1907 was largely unregulated, and there was no central authority to oversee the nation's banks. This lack of oversight had allowed some banks to engage in risky practices, and when they failed, it threatened to bring down the entire economy. Now enter J.P. Morgan. He proposed a radical idea, creating a central bank that would oversee the nation's banks and provide emergency funding to those in need. But this was a controversial idea. Many politicians and business leaders opposed it, fearing that a central bank would give too much power to Wall Street bankers. However, Morgan was undeterred. He argued that a central bank was necessary to prevent economic crises and protect the nation's financial system. And eventually his efforts paid off. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law, creating a central bank for the United States. Although he didn't live to see its full implementation, Morgan's legacy lived on, and the Federal Reserve became one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world. Now, let's return to the fascinating story of how J.P. Morgan used his influence and power to save America. While working tirelessly to create the Federal Reserve, Morgan faced numerous challenges and setbacks. But he never lost sight of his goal to create a more stable and secure financial system for the United States. But he wasn't just a brilliant financial mind. Morgan was also a shrewd politician. He understood the importance of public perception and worked hard to win over skeptics and build support for his ideas. Despite facing opposition from powerful figures, including President Theodore Roosevelt, Morgan ultimately prevailed and the Federal Reserve was born. His efforts saved the U.S. economy from total collapse and set the stage for decades of unprecedented growth and prosperity. But Morgan's impact went beyond just the creation of the Federal Reserve. He also played a key role in shaping the future of Wall Street. He was a founding member of the New York Stock Exchange and helped establish many of the industry's most important regulatory bodies. In fact, he was so influential that he earned the nickname the most powerful unelected man in America. However, despite his many accomplishments, Morgan was not without his critics. Some accused him of being a ruthless businessman who was only interested in making money for himself and his clients. Others argued that the Federal Reserve gave too much power to Wall Street bankers and that the system was rigged against ordinary investors. Nevertheless, Morgan's legacy as one of the most influential figures in American history remains intact. The Panic of 1907 was one of the worst financial crises in U.S. history, but it ultimately led to the creation of the Federal Reserve, which has helped stabilize the economy and prevent future crises. And while there have been many challenges and controversies over the years, the Federal Reserve has proven to be an essential part of the American financial system. In conclusion, J.P. Morgan's contributions to the world of finance and his impact on American history cannot be overstated. He was a visionary leader who saw the need for a more stable and secure financial system, and he worked tirelessly to make that a reality. Despite facing numerous challenges and setbacks, he never gave up on his goals, and his efforts ultimately paid off. Today, we benefit from the creation of the Federal Reserve and the other institutions that he helped establish. So, if you ever hear someone say that bankers don't make the world a better place, just remember the legend of J.P. Morgan, the man who saved America. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.